And we are live. How is everyone? Sort of missed yous on the weekend, or yesterday, to be more precise. And just had a few things, it's a bit under the sun last week. So sort of cruised through, and then I sort of missed being on, so I decided to be on. I'd done that video, the other one on the 1st, which was last week on the weekend. So I forgot all about them, and then I go, why don't I release those? So I released one today. I've got one on Wednesday that's getting released. As you guys know, it's up there in lights. So that'll be a good one. Cover a few points. I should have, I'm not sure whether it's going to be this week, but I'll try and get it out. There's going to be one on, that sort of recurring thing people always ask about, phosphorus and calcium and all that sort of stuff. I'm going to clear all that up. It's just nonsense. You'll be surprised it's the complete opposite. But I'm not going to give anything away, so don't ask me questions. So you will have to wait. Otherwise, Harry may get naughty and spank you all. Okay, let's see. Who's first here? Jay Ducky. As always, how are you, mate? It's good to have you here. Hard logic. God, life must be hard for you. And face of willingness. How are you? Evening, Harry. Love your work and have been going through the videos recently, learning lots. I would like to ask a question about the taurine blowout. Blowout? What do you mean blowout? I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that. I've been taking 3, you mean diarrhea. Yeah, can affect a few people, if that's what you mean. Some people are sensitive to sulfur, and they may need to take choline to sort of deal with it. It's just, it is what it is. It's, the bell curve. Bart K is one of those who cannot tolerate sulfur. So he struggles. That's why he, barely eats eggs and stuff like that. And he's only on minimal. Like he takes very little. He takes some taurine, but not much, because again, he's a bit sensitive in that regard. So where Pim can take as much as she likes, not a problem. She's like me. I can mega dose and have zero effects in, it just is what it is. But, we all have our disadvantages and our advantages. I have disadvantages on the calcium side and a few other things, MTHFR, the choline side, you name it. So I've got multiple things. And as you know from today's video, alopecia, well, in the 40s, when I was between my mid-30s and mid-40s, just around when I had my cardiovascular incident, pretty much in that period, my hair started thinning out quite a bit. I started getting a bald patch in the back here, which was my brother from another mother, my closest friend. He used to give me a hard time about it, bastard. But you know what? He's thinning out here. And guess what? He's trying to stop it as well by changing. He recently went carnivore as well. So I was shocked. His missus told me, you know what he's doing? He's actually doing carnivore. Really? And he's being really strict. Even at home, he won't cheat. I go, okay. So it must be, I said, it must be the hairline issue. And she laughed. Anyway, let me get through some of the lovely people that are here, and then I will get into the questions. Tom, good to see you, mate. Yes, I was bloody bored, and I was sitting around. Didn't want to watch anything. I didn't want to do anything. So I decided I've got a few things I have to do tomorrow, but I just, didn't want to deal with anything. And so I sort of moped around, went for a bit of a walk, came back, moped around a bit more, did a bit of some research that I've been doing. I'm not going to go into it, for that's future thing. And then sort of read a couple of articles. They were not nutritional or geopolitical. So I wasted about an hour and a half on reading about international geopolitics and stuff like that. Political geography has been one of my favorite things from a youngster. So it is actually, I enjoy it more than actually nutrition or anything like that. But anyway, that's why you probably do see some of my geopolitical videos now and then. Okay, Johnny Wong, how are you, mate? Tracy, always a pleasure. Yeah, bored, my dear, bored. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Thanks for the chat last time that we had together. Yes. Raymond, how are you, mate? So, long fast, what is it with you? You, Pim, she's doing dry fasts now. She did a 3.5 day, which is what I did last time, 3.5 day. It is, when you get to 3.5 days of dry fasting, you do notice it starts, the dryness in your mouth, the energy starts dropping off at that stage. I did notice. And the reason for that is quite simple. Your certain B vitamins by that stage are much lower. And remember, you still need the cofactors. You still need mineral cofactors and vitamin cofactors to allow enzymes to function. So even when they do, like in Russia, I know that they have like long dry fasts, but they actually, before people start those, they will actually put them on much higher. They will like higher doses of a number of the vitamins, because certain B vitamins can stay in your system for up to like 33 days, 20 through 33. So just because, and that's why I never recommend people take B vitamins every day, but every third day, or when they're deficient. They should get stuff from the food. It's because it gets retained in the system. It doesn't actually just get used. Carbohydrate metabolism does use, because it has high requirement. So in the machinery of metabolism, and so it does tend to go through certain minerals and vitamins far more. Like thiamine, for instance, you need double what you need for sort of low carb metabolism, in a sense. So it's different. So we just need to keep those things in mind. So if you're doing a fast and you want to do a bit of a longer fast, make sure you get your B vitamins up. And if you're going to use supplemental stuff to be certain that you've got them up, then make sure they're methylated, that they're good quality stuff, like the ones that the Paradise ones that are on iHerb, that are all methylated, and make sure the pantothenic acid one isn't too high either. So anyway, let's move on. I've already mentioned how I've been. It's Roy, haha. Anyway, there's my childhood behaviour coming out. I've been taking 3 grams for the last 10 days. Is it better to build up slowly over several days to sort of build a tolerance to something? Yeah, I usually encourage people to take about 0.5 gram and then move up, slowly over 3 months before they get up to 3 grams or more per day, especially if they've got sulfur issues. That's one. If they don't, then they can start at a gram, because remember, oysters, like 100 grams of oysters, which is 3.53 ounces equivalent, will pretty much give you 2.2 grams of taurine. So it's not really an issue, but some people can be sulfur sensitive. And the dietary stuff, like there is an issue with in oysters sometimes, that the way it gets absorbed in some people seems to be better than others. So it's a bit funny in that regard. I'm not sure why. Don't know, pretty much. But there is, if I usually say to people, if you're sensitive to oysters or sensitive to eggs and stuff like that, you're going to be sensitive to any sulfur, including MSM and taurine. And so I usually encourage people to go low and see what their tolerance level, and see whether, sometimes even people that have got a sulfur sensitivity can actually go low and creep up, and their body adjusts. And I know Bart's done something like that, so he can tolerate a bit more, where initially it was really hard for him. So he just realized that it is involved in the production of new brain cells, and so that was a motivating factor for him to continue. Anyway, I would love to know the mechanism behind taurine blowout and the protocols. There's actually a playlist that covers a lot of things about taurine. Go and check it out, and if you've got any questions outside that, then ask me. Because this is just an impromptu. I'm just dropping in to say hello and stuff like that. So it's not like a full-on regular sort of, thing. And I may sit here and just ignore your questions and just blurt out a whole lot of other things. Anyway, hi Harry. Where's the Q? Where's the Q? Crows. Anyway, I'll be sending Ted over to give you a nice spanking. Hi Harry. Is follow-on deficiency a concern on carnivore? No. Definitely not. If you're eating enough animal flesh, so it only becomes a problem if you're eating way too much fat and very little protein. Then it can become a problem, yes. Then you can have, especially if you've got methylation issues, like you've got problems with your like MTHFR issues, like I have. But that can actually be corrected with eating more eggs, or taking, if you don't like eggs, then taking a choline supplement, because choline can actually, it spares folate, it spares B12, because B12 is needed for the brain, but also for bone mineral, for bone turnover. So if you're low, that's another issue for osteoporosis or stuff like that. So it's important that we spare those things, and that we utilize more choline to deal with, which comes into the methionine cycle. There's a methionine cycle, and off that there is the folate cycle. The folate cycle isn't the primary one, it's the secondary one. Ignore what you've heard out there. The methionine cycle is the main cycle, and the only thing that comes directly into the methionine cycle, telling you that, that confirming another element to confirming species appropriateness of a carnivore diet, is choline. And choline is only really found in animal foods. So yeah, it spares folate, it spares B12, it spares all these things, so they can be utilized for other purposes. It's fantastic in that regard. So, and it's found, if you're eating a good amount of protein, you'll get plenty of choline. And if you're eating some eggs as well, you'll be getting double. I get well over, because it's about half a gram you need. That's for the general sort of population. The reality is that your choline requirements on a carnivore diet, again, they're going to be slightly lower. So getting over a gram or whatever just from the food that I get is technically speaking like 3 times our requirement. So it can actually bring homocysteine and methylate a lot of things, let alone the carnivore diet furnishes the other stuff. Riboflavin, as you guys know, that have been long-term followers, know quite clearly that riboflavin that is primarily found in animal foods is the key cofactor to upregulate the MTHFR enzyme and eliminate the so-called methylation problem. What problem? It's only in the imagination of naturopaths who want to sell you folate. And if you get too much folate, it depletes, guess what, B12. And then you become a true crackpot. And then you have dementia issues, potentially. Anyway, let's move on. How does dry fasting speed up the process of immune resetting? It just enhances autophagy and clearing out of senescent immune cells. That's what it does. It allows you to, obviously taurine is also good to reduce immunosenescence, which means it protects the immune system. It's another one of those wonderful multiple things that it does. So obviously eating a carnivorous diet that's high in methionine and cysteine will allow you to synthesize more taurine. And on the other hand, if you're also a good kid and occasionally do biohacks and occasionally supplement a bit, you will also get improvements in those areas as well. Is that sheep I see? I had a bit today. How much choline? Never go over 3.5 grams, otherwise you'll get some nasty side effects. We only need about 0.5 gram, the majority of population. So most people on a carnivore diet usually get anywhere between that and 1 gram. So we don't really need to supplement unless somebody has, for instance, like high homocysteine. They've just come off a veganurized diet. So vegoons is my sort of nickname for the vegans. So if you've come off a veganurized diet, then you may have high homocysteine. And as a consequence, and I have done a very nice video that I take the fun out of Gregor. It's a really nice one and enjoyable. Get a lot of laughs out of that one. Oh, thanks, Scotty, for putting up. Good to see you here, mate. Putting up the playlist. You wouldn't mind throwing in that one of Gregor, you know, the video that regards to the homocysteine stuff. That's a funny one. Anybody that hasn't seen that doesn't know how humorous I can be. And really top information as well. That annihilates the vagoons. So, yes. Harry's in his 40s and the near cardiovascular experience. Yeah, I know. Don't brings back awful memories, Scotty. Brings back awful memories. God, I look bad. My skin was so bad. It's the reason why I know my brother from another mother. He's going to criticize me. He goes, "You weren't wearing a singlet. How unprofessional." He will actually say that next time he sees me down at the markets. So give me a hard time. He always does. So I'm not wearing a singlet tonight. So he'll give me a hard time. But the reason I wore the singlet is because you can see all my, you know, everything exposed. You don't see any really bad skin on me, you know, around my neck or anything like that. You know, it's all, at the moment, I'm not shaven, but anyway, you know what I mean. Or any sort of the darkness around the neck and the, you know, all these. I used to have pimples around my neck. They used to bleed sometimes into my shirt. That's in the old bad days. So my skin was really bad. I used to get pimples all over. It was nasty. It was all the sugar. It was all that crap that I was putting into myself. But yeah, so wild experience. And I mean, somebody said that Georgie is about, because I actually found my old blog on this is ages ago on Reddit. This was in 2020, and they were actually saying he was about 44, which would make him now this year 48, which is I'll be 58 this year as well. So we're about a decade difference, and you can see the stark difference, how inflamed he is, how older he is, and that hairline is really receded quite a bit, old Georgie. Those carbs are not really helping, are they? Hi, Harry. Again. Too many hellos and how are you and all that. What's your cause of absorption in the tooth? I've been told that absorption, and we'll probably need a root canal. Look, if a tooth is really that bad, root canals and a lot of these sort of things, this is not medical advice. I'm not telling you what to do, but I had a bad tooth that I fell over when I was drunk. That's another story. And so I had cracked and damaged the tooth. It got bad, and so I had it completely removed. I would never put a root canal or a screw in or anything like that. And the reason for that is because bacteria can go in there and then end up in the heart. Not a very good idea. So this is not medical advice. I'm just telling you what I wouldn't do, and what you do is your business. You would have to live with the consequences if they don't work out. And there have been people that have actually gone in and done just cleaning up their teeth and had, because they had a lot of gingivitis and whatever else, they've ended up in the hospital emergency from, pretty much septicemia. So you've got to be careful with these things. People think that just a normal thing, nothing important, but you've got to be careful. Anyway, Simon. Oh, Sarah. Yeah, you're always using your hubby's account. G'day, how are you? Good to see you. Why is the light flickering from orange to green? Oh, I don't know. Do not know. Hold on. Let me just change the background and see whether it makes any difference. Settings. Virtual background. We'll get Hobart. What I use for when I'm doing business calls, work related. It is. Okay, let's see. Has that fixed the problem? No, it's not. Now it makes me look. Let me just remove myself for a second, see whether that Oh, well, it's Harry's Pride Day. As Scotty would say. You'll have to put up with it. Sorry, but, I just don't know why it's bloody doing it. Ah, there's Jonathan. How are you, Jonathan? Yes. Oh, yeah, it'd be early in the morning for you, mate. Well, not, late morning. Okay, Harry, I'm taking a high dose of taurine for my lung fibrosis. Good. Do you think I need to take a break time to time or not? Really, thank you. I did actually vary it a bit. So I would, for a month, bring it down, then go back up to my higher dose for about 3 months and then come back down. So I did play around with it a bit in that regard. So I didn't sort of stick to just sort of certain levels. It's probably a good idea, but there isn't a lot of research out there, and most of the top research say that most mammals, they can give them mega doses and it doesn't seem, as long as they're not sulfur sensitive. So I don't know. How do you feel? It's really how you feel, basically, mate. Denny C, how are you, mate? Another UK person. Early for you. Are you familiar with your work? It's quite intriguing. No, never heard of him. Let me just highlight. I do have the actual window here, so just highlight and where is that question? Where is it? The question? No. Oh, there. Yeah, somebody asked me about this other guy as well today, and somebody then came in the comment and said, "Oh, that guy, he thinks he's on steroids or whatever." Anyway, I must be living. Yeah. Right. So I've just got his name down in my little notepad, and I'll look him up in that regard. It's a lot of people that I don't have any idea about. You just need to know that. I'm taking Foston 5 days a month, but feel so tired on the day 6 and during. Yeah, it will make you very tired, because especially if you're doing the protocol. I know one of the guys down here, an older fella, he felt the same level of tiredness. So if you do it quite a bit, so if you do it continuously, like, it's the reason why I recommend only doing it for 3 days, because it does inhibit mTOR, which isn't good. It's pushing your body into a too catabolic state, which isn't a good thing to do continuously. But it has very powerful. So I usually say 20 milligrams per kilo of body weight, and then from that, do it 3 times at the beginning of a month. If you have things like a lot of senescence, like a lot of damage, cellular damage, or you've got cancer or stuff like that. For regular people, I do it once every 6 months. So I don't do it constantly. Sometimes I may even leave it for once a year. But for my dad, I do it more often because he needs it. Okay, that reminds me. we're coming up close to where I have to reorder for him as well. Thanks for the reminder. But yeah, it can make you tired. It's one side effect of, especially when you're in that higher dose range, and if you're doing it for too many days. So I'd stick to 3 days, not 5 days or more. You're not supposed to do it every day. Just keep that in mind. Hey, Harry. Look, your gut since baby. Any tips on how to heal a carnivore diet? Been 5 years and get inflamed and everything. Taurine and vitamin D. You need to check your vitamin D levels. Your tight junctions in your gut. I've done a whole lot of videos. There's one on microbiome and one on digestive issues. There's a whole playlist on digestive issues. Covers all this sort of stuff. It shows you exactly how taurine and vitamin D work synergistically to shut those that leaky gut down, as long as you're not putting shit in that's keeping it open. Anyway, friends with chronic hereditary summer sun is fine. Sunny in others. Oh, brilliant. It's even hard to read on this damn thing that's going on and off. It's ridiculous. What is it today? I have no idea why it's doing it, but it is very, very annoying to say the damn least. So anyway, let's see. Oh, what the frick did I minimize that? Come back. Okay, friend with chlorogenic utero. Always, you know my dyslexia. I'm not going to pronounce it. Summer sun is fine. Sun in other seasons. Heat, exercise, emotions make him hurt and itch. I have heard about this, but I haven't investigated it. Oh, I don't know enough about it. Old house was moldy, but that wouldn't help. Got him to go carny, taurine, eggs, yellows. What else? Let me look. Hard logic. Leave a message. Leave a comment about this, and I'll look into it a bit. I've heard about it, but this is the first time anybody's actually asked me the question. And there are people with photosensitivity that have got. I think some of these people also react really badly to certain, like they can get a rash or whatever. I think I can't remember what, but they may be the same group. I could be wrong. Don't hold it against me. That react badly to things like Lyme as well. So especially on their skin. So I don't really know enough. Obviously, things that have to do with skin have to do with vitamin D and have to do with retinol levels as well. So if you've got excessively low retinol levels or excessively low, but even high of one or the other, which is causing a depletion of the other, which people are not managing that side well, can cause some activation of matrix metalloproteinases and actually cause certain side effects of where you get certain histamine release as a consequence. Now, taurine does help with that, but but at the end of the day, those enzymes still need to be regulated properly. So, eggs is a really good thing because you're going to get your vitamin A from there, retinol, in the proper form, not in the other stuff, like some other guy that was actually eating very high carotenoids and ended up with orange skin and giving himself vitamin A toxicity. But anyway, because people listen to crackpots out there and say, oh, you can actually have as much carotenoids as you like. you're not going to get any toxicity or any problems whatsoever. Bullshit. There is a physiological range for everything. You go too high, you're going to cause yourself problems. If you eat animal foods, you usually will stay within the right ranges. Yeah, just leave me and I'll look into it. I don't know enough about this condition to basically give you a comment, a really good comment in that regard. Just tea and coffee, dilute gastric juices, and should not drinking before or after meals. I usually keep my coffee separate. I keep coffee separate from food. I don't consume, first of all, I don't consume tea at all because it's got EGCG. EGCG, everybody touts it as a compound which provides longevity. Bullshit. It actually, you've seen the senolytic stuff that I did. What it do? It increased senescence. It increased the damaging of cells. It's a low grade, it's a compound that actually, if you don't have a lot of stresses in your life, that little bit of stress in the tea, which is very little, could be useful for hormesis. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, so to speak, but I would not touch. That's the one reason I don't consume tea anymore completely. Now, coffee, that's also a, not very healthy beverage to consume, but if you're going to consume it between. And about diluting gastric juices, not really, no, that wouldn't cause anything like that whatsoever. I don't know who's peddling that sort of stuff, but I've not seen anything in the literature that says it's diluting, like it's affecting your stomach acidity. Fiber and things like that are going to have a much more profound effect than coffee on your gastric juices. Actually, it may even help them a bit, so that's not going to be an issue. But I keep coffee separate from food. It's just the smarter thing to do. Yasu. These Greeks in southern Italy. Or, could be in Greece. Anyway, let's move on. Kalos if this. Okay, Tegan Brown. What are you going to debunk the heme iron nonsense? Yeah, I'm going to do that. I just haven't got around doing it. So I got sidetracked by other things. But I do have a video that's going to come in the next couple of weeks on heme and non-heme, and it will really explain it well. So it is in the workings in that regard. I've got a folder with all the actual information that I need to do it. I just haven't done it yet. So thanks for reminding me. I just forgot. I've got a whole just hundreds and hundreds. I've shown people before, and my folders are just full of things that I haven't still done. So I've got enough videos to make for the next quite a few years, for a decade. That's how much material I've got. It's just a matter of having enough time between my day job and my personal life and family life and all that sort of stuff. So, but it will happen. I've got the, one video after. I'm probably gonna this week at some stage. I want to cover the phosphorus calcium one, and then I will do one on this as well on heme and stuff like that. Somebody left me a comment and actually on that point, so I will be covering it because a lot of people are concerned about the breakdown of heme into non-heme, whether that's a problem and stuff like that. It's only a problem on a non-carnivore diet, but that will be fully explained in the video with proper science, not with comments. So that's in the works. So if I've got enough time, maybe later this week. If I don't, it'll be next week, because I have promised it. I'm not sure whether I promised it to you, Tegon, or whether I promised it to someone else. I can't remember now. Somebody asked me about it. Can stretching prevent muscle loss when fasting? No. Any physical activity that you do can be useful if it's like light. When you're fasting, you do light stuff. It definitely has a bit of an effect. But generally speaking, when you're going into it, if it's a short-term fast, you're not really going to have much of any, practically zero muscle loss. So I wouldn't worry. Unless you're doing months and months, then maybe you may have an issue. But even then, if you're getting all the cofactors, you're getting everything, because that guy Angus, who did 365 days, he was completely in ketosis. He was completely fat adapted. He was getting sufficient energy. He was a big boy, morbidly obese. This is back in the 60s. He was getting all the vitamins and minerals from the hospital, exactly to make sure that he had all the cofactors required to do all the processes. And he was pretty much, as a consequence, recycling a lot of his organelles, stuff like that. Now, there is a trick you can do, and it's a video that I haven't made yet, about the biohack, how to do it, how to add. I'll just tell you now. I will make the video to explain all the biochemistry and the physiology, how it works. But you can amplify the effect of cellular cleanup, and it seems to also have a protective effect on tissue, and that's using just less, about a gram, or I use about 0.9. I mentioned it recently in a video that I did with Pim, and about 3 grams of citrulline. So you can actually, because they work synergistically, or arginine, but citrulline will be converted the kidneys into arginine, and it's really the combo that upregulates certain autophagy pathways via the Captor 1 and Captor 2 pathways, and that enhances cellular cleanup, but also seems to have a protective effect on cells in terms of catabolism, so you don't get any severe catabolism and stuff like that. I do it every morning. Well, I'm lying. Not every morning. I try to do it every morning, to be more precise. So, yeah. It's hard to remember sometimes. You're rushing out and you go, shit, I forgot to do it this morning. You're off to work. If I'm working from home, it's easy. It's bloody easy. But the 3 days that I have to go to work into the office, yeah, on those, sometimes I forget. It's probably one of the 3 that I actually forget. It's usually the Friday for some damn reason. But I'm in a hurry to get to work on Friday. Maybe because I want to get there early so I can actually flex off early as well. Maybe that's the reason, the motivation. Yeah, but I wouldn't be worried unless, because you're going to be recycling a lot of your own. I think that actually if you run out of fuel, you're very lean and you run out of fuel, obviously you're going to tap into muscle, because the body needs, and that's, if you do that long enough, you end up in sort of like with high ammonia and stuff like that, which is what we call protein poisoning or what we call rabbit starvation and stuff like that. You usually get some of the liver enzymes go up. Remember the video that I did about the nonsense of insulin suppression, that video that I did some time ago? Again, that guy was extremely lean, eating a lot of lean meat, and so as a consequence, couldn't put on muscle because he was catabolizing his own, because that was the only energy source that was coming in and available, because it wasn't enough on his torso. So if you're very lean, yes, but if you're not, then no, until you become very lean. And to a large extent, at that stage, why are you wasting your time fasting, in a sense, since in a low carbohydrate ketogenic state, you will get similar benefits in terms of autophagy. We're always doing autophagy, but at just reduced levels. It's the level of insulin in the system that actually interferes with autophagy. So, in a low carb state, you're gonna be doing more cellular cleanup and turnover than you will be on a high carb diet. Won't you, Georgie Blinkoff? Yes, and also, as I always say, you won't end up like Ray Peat at the end, incoherent, to try and work out what he was trying to say, because he was so damaged. Goodness, Harry, I'm a little afraid of people, probably the initial form of sociophobia. I don't feel comfortable in large groups. I don't know if I should try to fix it. Yeah, you should. Look, people, I'm an introvert. Generally, I'm an introvert. As a youngster, I'm still am an introvert. I'm in that regard. But as a youngster, my old man just, the old-fashioned way, just pushed me out there. Work, you little Greek slave, work. And so I was in indentured service to my father, so I had to, if he was doing any welding work or any other handyman work, I used to get dragged around with him. And in the shop, I also had to work and do service and all that. And I've still got one habit, because in the old days you didn't have the old, like the cash registers back in the 70s. It was just, you just typed in the numbers one after the other for the goods. It would give you a total. In that regard, somebody would give you money and you'd have to work it out, the total. That in many cases I was already calculating ahead what it costs, what I had to give back, all that sort of stuff. So I got into the habit. Even now, I go into a supermarket, I'll get stuff, and I already know what I have to pay when I get out. Yes, I've been traumatized by my father. Anyway, so that's what happens when you work in retail in the old-fashioned way for a long time. But you got to get out there. Now, one thing that can help is with anxiety is taurine. Taurine can really help lower cortisol levels and make you less anxious. But at the end of the day, you've got to try and get out there and interact with people and interact with. I know in today's tablet world that we live in, that's really also exacerbated things for a lot of people, especially younger people. And I suspect you're a younger person. Try and get into groups. Even though initially you may be sitting on the periphery of that group, over time you'll feel a bit more comfortable with those people and feel a bit more open to engage. Start with small groups, not large groups, and just work on it. Just remember, everybody else any human that tells you they're not uncomfortable, especially when they're young, particular, looking back, I mean, now I don't care, I don't give a shit. But that's the wisdom of old age and experience. You realize that it's meaningless and all that. When you're in a younger age, you're trying to impress your friends, you're trying to impress girls. It's all these sort of things. And so it's hard. I understand where you're coming from, but you just have to work at it in that regard. So, at the end of the day, as humans, things may seem difficult and hard at the moment. They do get better. Trust me on that. They do get really, really better. It just takes time. So I wouldn't just try and work on those things. Keep away from inflammatory foods, which make, and blue screen. Get yourself blue blocking glasses. Try and reduce that, because that also increases some of these stress hormones and all that, blue light. And so try and actually improve your general circadian rhythms and light hygiene. That will also help. And try and focus on working, doing things, pushing yourself a bit. Even small steps. You don't have to do massive steps. Small steps can help in trying to break, because if you try and do things too big, you'll fail. You'll put yourself up for failure. You just make things very uncomfortable. So always try with smaller groups, a small block of time, not a large block of time. Try and like go out for a coffee with probably one person that you feel comfortable with, and that person will make you feel comfortable. So over time, you'll feel comfortable with other people around you. You'll just start ignoring them, and you'll be getting into the conversation and that relationship. So try and do those sort of things, and over time, your mindset will shift. Avoid staying indoors. That's really a bad thing. Even if you're on your own, go outdoors early in the morning and late at night when the light changes. That's really important for your circadian clocks. That also has a much calming, putting the cortisol, melatonin, and all the cycles through the day in their right place, the hormonal stuff, which means you'll have more stable hormonal situation in your own body. That's also an important thing. Make sure you keep your diet clean. Your vitamin D levels are at a good level, because if they're too low, they can also cause some of these issues as well. So you need your vitamin D levels to be properly. So sometimes people, they improve their vitamin D and they feel better and more confident, and because it also helps. And are you getting enough? Sometimes some people need more to support their hormones. They need more cholesterol. So more eggs give you more cholesterol, and that seems also to improve people's hormonal situation. Are you exposed to too many chemicals, mold, things like that can affect your endocrine system? And that also, the disruption of your endocrine system, can also affect your brain chemistry and your state of mind. So there's a lot of factors, both social, dietary, and environmental. And you've got to look at these three areas, and try and actually fix them all in that regard. Sometimes it can be hard. It's a bit of trial and error. But as long as you persist, even small steps, you will get some benefits out of it, Dennis. So if you want to send me an email or stuff like that, and because it's a bit probably uncomfortable for you, to sort of say too much, and we'll have a bit of a discussion on some finer details. Anyway, take care, mate. Anyway, base of willingness. It's hard to know how much taurine I can tolerate. Well, yeah, because I haven't resolved this diarrhea that I've since pre-carnivore. Okay, so you've had there could be a lot of reasons for diarrhea. I'll give you an example. If you've got a gallbladder issue and you go on a carnivore diet and you can't produce enough bile, and you're actually got really good stomach acidity, guess what happens? That stomach acidity comes through, and the not enough bile, which is an alkalinizing agent that actually reduces the acidity, the body has to, because it's the small intestine right through to the colon and right down to the anus, all that is sensitive to high, if things are too acidic coming out of the stomach, because it's like battery acid in there. So you need a whole lot of things to, especially bile has an alkalinizing effect and increases the pH and lowers the acidity levels. So it's really important that your gallbladder is functioning properly. If it's not, then you can get this sort of carnivore diarrhea. It can be also due to derangements of your gut microbiome. Some people find they do kefir, they put more lactobacillus in, and bifidobacteria. They suppress the pathogenic bacteria, and things resolve themselves. Candida, if you've got candida overgrowth with it, which is a yeast overgrowth, that can also be an issue that needs to be dealt with. And usually the carnivore diet, and if you get overgrowth coming through, it's going to really have derangements throughout the whole digestive tract. And so I have done some videos, just look them up in the digestive issues, and there is a whole playlist. Just go in there, check them out, and you'll get the information. Anyway, and if you've got more questions after in resolving things, ask me more questions, just leave comments. I will answer them. I couldn't handle 1 gram, and now built myself up to 4 grams. Good for you, Johnny. Yeah, look, some people can't, and it takes a while. Even Bart had to go slowly until he could actually get himself to being able to deal with that sort of stuff. Let me, how are you? Christos Alessi. Got to sleep now. Posso essere manga? So Tracy did a runner. Gobi, sure. When will the war in the Ukraine end? No idea, mate. No idea. It seems the globalists are hell bent on being involved in a long, protracted war. They're playing with fire, and it's dangerous. And I know that, there are far more, let's say, aggressive politicians in the Duma of the Russian Federation. And Putin is actually a much more moderate person. As you know, in the past, they criticised him of being too close to the West, which he may have been at the time. But it was a different era, and he was trying to improve the relationships and the trade between Russia and the West, which wasn't a bad thing. He was looking after the national interests of the country by improving, economic relationships. But at the time, but now, you've got some really crazy woke lunatics in the White House, and it's problematic. They're trying to keep the other guy out, for one and only reason, because that guy will definitely stop the war. He'll go and negotiate and say, that's it, no more. And he can do a sort of a government degree that pretty much says, I'm not going to authorize any of those payments. So even though they've passed a piece of legislation and all that, he can revoke that sort of stuff, and they know it, and he can do that and cause them other problems, so they won't be able to support to the same level. He could also, initiate certain actions against the Europeans if they don't fall into line, and leave them really open in terms of defense. So, but that's why they're trying to keep him out, because the deep state they've spent a lot of money. They want Ukraine, because Ukraine has got a lot of oil and gas reserves. Has got a lot of it's one of the most, it's the biggest food bowl in the, and if the globalists want to control the global food, there's about four big areas. One is North America, which is Canada, US. The other one is South America, which the other side, which is pretty much Brazil, Argentina. Those, to a lesser degree, they fall within that. Uruguay and Paraguay fall within that to some extent, but it's primarily Brazil and Argentina, the big food sort of producers of the southern part of the Americas. And so that's the second sort of thing. And then in Europe, really, Ukraine and to some extent Russia, but primarily Ukraine is the big food bowl. So you got sort of those sort of three in that regard, and then five, I should have said, and then the other two, China and Australasia. So that's really your big producers, commodity producers. But even China is not a big producer. It doesn't produce, and India and China don't produce enough to export sufficiently. They can export a bit, but not enough. So really it is for, when we talk about the big areas that produce more than they can consume and do most of the exporting, it's sort of the Ukraine, Australia, Brazil, Argentina, and the northern part. So those four, it is four that really are the big producers in terms of export, because that's really important. Because so obviously that's what BlackRock and State Street and Vanguard and all these big, sort of Goliaths of the finance sector and pretty much owners of most of the S&P 500 in the US. That's the problem. These people are just, remember, you have to look at a lot of these big fund managers. They're not only managing big portfolios, they're also managing massive types of, financial instruments like derivatives and all that. They need to keep that going. So if that falls apart, the whole thing could implode. And that's what they're fearing. This is a fight for whether you could say the US, and we're talking about not the people of the US. People of the US wouldn't give a shit if BlackRock went to oblivion. It wouldn't really affect them that much. It would be, they'd reset their economy. They'd become an export oriented, because they've got still a strong industrial base. They've got a lot of energy and all that. They would have to become more export orientated, and they would actually get in a better place once they flushed out all the the financial bullshit instruments, the Ponzi scheme that's been there. But that Ponzi scheme that BlackRock, State Street and all that run, they want it to go on forever. They want to remain the masters of the universe. I mean, that's the problem. And it's the reason why they're inflating, that they've got a policy, an inflationary policy. It's the reason why Larry Finn from BlackRock goes and speaks to the Fed. He's the only fund manager in the world that actually can speak to a central bank. It's absurd. Talk about a conflict of interest, but that's how powerful the guy is. And he's the one that's been pushing all the woke agenda, the ESG and all that. It didn't come out of nowhere. It's these people. And why? Because Larry, unfortunately, has a problem. He's got all the money in the world, but what he lacks is time. And since he's an atheist and he doesn't believe in God or the resurrection or anything like that, he basically wants to become a little AI God. And so this gender sort of politics that's actually emerged is really to destroy the fabric of society, Western civilization, Christianity, which is the most hostile thing for him, create this new sort of Fabian socialist utopia, which they run and control everything, and you'll own nothing and you'll be happy on kibble. And pretty much they want to enforce that over the whole globe. This is why for them it's an end game situation. And for the Russians on their side, it's really, they see that if they lose, if they back off, the West will dismember Russia completely. They know that. That's why Putin has said, if Russia ends, so do the rest. I'll press the button. And I think he's serious. And I'll tell you why he's serious. Because basically, his sort of attitude is, if you're going to destroy us and there's no Russia anymore, what's the point if we become slaves of the West and we've got nothing? We're dismembered completely. So, and there are other people behind him that are actually talking about, are pushing him and urging him to use tactical nukes against the Ukrainians and finish them off, wipe them off the face of the earth. There are people in Russia actually telling Putin, drop some nukes in Western Ukraine and just wipe that whole country out of existence. So things are getting really aggressive. They're pushing them to the wall. It's a bit like the Cuban Missile Crisis, but on steroids. It's really dangerous times. We are so close to midnight on the nuclear clock, people don't even realize it, how dangerous we are. And what have we got? A whole lot of crackpot bureaucrats who are fanatically haters of Russia that have been brought up in the belief system that was, pushed by this Polish American, Brzezinski, and they are following the Brzezinski doctrine to the hilt. And the Brzezinski doctrine was encircle the Soviet Union and destroy it. They believe they did not achieve that. And now they have to achieve that before they can move on to pretty much onto China. But China's never been an expansionist power. What China's done is always use soft power. That's their approach. Now, people are saying, well, China's building a massive navy. Yes, they are. But guess why they're building? If you take a look, Korea has got about 40-odd large ships, massive ships, big destroyers, all of them. Japan, on the other hand, has got another 40 principal surface combatants. Most of them are destroyers as well, and some of them are really large destroyers with, like 90, like the Ali Burks, that big. And some of the actual Korean, South Korean ones are even bigger than the Ali Burks. So they've got a lot of ships, a lot of aircraft carriers, and all that. So when China looks at that, because China's not looking at like just America, it's looking at all these countries allied against it and going, if they cut off my sea lanes, I'm effed. My economy collapses. And so you can understand where that's coming from. And it's really that the Biden administration, following this, deep state agenda, they know economically that they're on the decline. They're, an empire that is failing. And so it's like the last hurrah. If we don't take out our opponents now, we won't be able to do it in the future because we'll be in such debt and such problems that it will take a long time for us to sort of reset our sort of system. They're already the same things. I've heard some people recently been talking about, and I've talked about this in the past. If you go back a couple of years ago, it's probably about 2 years ago now, maybe a bit longer, on one of the on a couple of live streams where I talked about how the Japanese were doing this intergenerational transfer of wealth, but they can do the money printing. I mean, their debt's even higher, like it's 260% of GDP, but they can do that for a simple reason. The Japanese can do that because most of the debt is held by the Japanese, and also because of the investments that they made abroad in the 80s and 90s. A lot of that brings back capital, new fresh capital to the Japanese economy. And also they have another thing. Why does Japan have a debt to GDP of 244%, has very little inflation? Why? Has anybody ever asked? Simple. Closed borders, no immigration, the xenophobes. Good for them. It's their country, their business. But as a consequence, with the birth rate declining, there's less demand. Housing has come down quite a bit. And most other things are very cheap. And they're not worried about using petrochemicals for energy. They don't have our woke mentality. So they've got cheap energy, they've got a declining demand in the economy. So they can keep on inflating their economy, because really it's, it's otherwise, because of all the other domestic stuff, it's you've got deflation. The money printing is actually preventing, sort of stopping the excess deflation in the economy. So they don't even feel much of this sort of inflation. Salaries get adjusted, things keep on going. Most of the debt is controlled by the central bank, buys up everything. Also, on top of that, the other thing that, most of the other 20% is owed primarily by old people, and they're very nationalistic, they don't want to sell. So very small amount is held by fund managers abroad, So even if a fund manager, because most fund managers wouldn't even own 1%, but let's say even if they owned 1% and they dumped it in the open market, it would be a blip for the Japanese economy. Wouldn't affect them. Not the same with the US, where a large part of the debt is owned by foreigners. Something like, if the Chinese decide to take the amount of debt that they have and just dump it, into the open market, that could be very catastrophic for the US economy. It would send interest rates sky high and inflation sky high, especially when you've got the woke idiots bringing so much people in. So look at the madness. Shitloads of people coming in, uncontrolled borders, shitloads of suppression of new energy production because of the green new bullshit. And then on top of that, Gates and many others buying up all the farmland and all that, and sort of, restricting, and a lot of the supply chains being in a bit of a mess still to some extent. Massive food inflation, massive inflation. People are struggling. It's just crazy. It's creating like a powder cake for a civil war in that country. I'm looking at, comments that people are putting from the US, and you can see people talking about, we need to get rid of these people, and, 100,000 militia need to go around and just take out these politicians. And I'm going, bloody hell, things are really getting serious in the US. Very unstable. And the globalists, they don't care. They want power. They want everything. Remember, Larry Finn wants to become an AI god. So he needs to change all the legislation, make everybody woke, so everybody then can allow him, he can identify as a robot, as anything. And then he can basically then get the law, the politicians to change the legislation where he can upload himself. We're talking about these people are crazy and dangerous. This is the madness. And this is the problem with the education system. All the left crazies were in there, brainwashing all these tech billionaires and financiers. Now they're actually running the businesses of the United States, and they've got really some crazy ideas in their heads. That's why the West is nosediving at the moment. And it's us as people. We need to stand up. You know, so nobody's going to change anything. Either we're going to sit back and just allow the slow decline. You know, Japanese don't have a problem. They don't have these inflationary pressures. At some point, the central bank will own everything. They'll, as I said back in that video, the central banker will stand in front of the emperor together with the finance minister and go, you know that IOU? Rip it and throw it away. Let's reset a new Japanese currency. They can do that because they own the debt. But the rest of us are not in the same boat, and we need to fix our countries. We need to de-wokeify them before it's too late. Truly need to de-wokeify them. You know, and get t-shirts. This is a new slogan. You know, no. So you've got a big no to 15-minute gulags. Get that out as a slogan. It's one that I've been promoting recently. I just haven't told you guys yet, but I've been promoting it through social media. You know, need to put it out like that, and people will click. They go, yeah, I don't want to live in a 15-minute gulag being told when I can, you know, how I can move around and all that. If that's what we need. We need to motivate the rest of society with a catchy slogan, guys. People that are out there, I don't care about. You don't need to send me royalties for the IP. It's a free IP. Just do it. No, simple. No to 15-minute gulags. Simple as that. Just get the slogan out there, you know. Anyway, is it true that if you take digestive enzymes frequently, such as for poor digestion, that the body stops producing its own enzymes? Not really. You know, it can sort of down-regulate a bit, but not really. Not really. With enzymes, the biggest problem with us as we get older, if we've got too much derangements, too much damage, especially in our pancreas, we will see a certain decline in the production of enzymes. And that's the reason why people struggle to digest enough, why they need more meat in their diet to basically be able to, get more aminos in, you know, all these sort of things. And sort of if you've got more senescent cells inside, you know, not only in other parts, when you have more senescent cells throughout the whole body, obviously you're going to have more in the pancreas as well, which means that the pancreas isn't going to be working as well. So there's a lot of things like that. The other thing is enzyme, you know, a lot of the proteolytic enzymes can be very helpful. They've been shown to be able to combat all sorts of things, even, you know, dealing with a lot of the, doing that can actually break down some of that sort of stuff, those foreign proteins that shouldn't be there. So they can be useful, and that's probably a reason why certain people in an older age bracket and all that have more issues in dealing with some of those health-related problems. So I wouldn't get too wound up about that. It's probably more cost than anything else. Once you fix your digestion and it works properly, then a lot of these things resolve, So if you get taurine, you use, something to acidify your stomach like HCl. If there's a problem there, that is. As I say to people, find out what your digestive problems is. I can't diagnose you from a distance. You need to go in and test yourself. You need to go in and do like ultrasound tests to find out, if you're getting like a bit of pain under your, like this part, your, so That's our left, the right side. So obviously, because I'm on a camera, it may be different for you guys. So you get just under the rib cage, you get a bit of pain there, or discomfort, or a bit of feeling a bit of it's tender a bit, stuff like that. That may indicate a gallbladder issue. And if you're getting frequent headaches or any sort of effects on this shoulder side, that will probably tell you that you've got a gallbladder issue that needs to be resolved. And I cover that with milk thistle and choline and stuff like that, and taurine. That I usually take out the taurine initially and don't use taurine. I'll use a different type of approach in that regard. Initially, I'll just start with, before I bring the taurine in, because you can actually end up acidifying, getting your stomach to function properly and acidify with taurine, because it actually can correct stomach acidity. But the problem then is, if you don't have enough of the bile, then you end up with diarrhea, because the body has to flush water into the small intestine in order to basically reduce the level of acidity, or sort of buffer it, in a sense. That's the word, buffer it. So it's really important that we deal with the things one at a time to sort of resolve things. So whether you have that problem or not, you've got to do an ultrasound. You've got to go and check to find out. And then check out my digestive issues, which covers a lot of things. It covers some of the Reuteri, some of the specific lactobacillus, but there's other things that can actually fight C. diff and all sorts of things, because I don't know what people, unless they check themselves. Then I can actually, once I know more details, and usually I say to people, send me an email, and once I know more details about your actual condition, then I can advise you properly. Without knowing enough, it's impossible. Or go to somebody like Jonathan or Bart for advice in terms of those sort of health issues. Do a consultancy, and they can take you through, what you need to do, all the steps. Because sometimes these things can be long term, and I can't. I've got a day job. I do not have time. I can give you some quick information, but if you need some support, you need to go to people that have got time, and that's what they're doing. That's part of their job or day life. Anyway, is it true that creativity peaks before the age of 27? They say that only ideas that come in the age of 20 to 27 are realized with age. There's a bit of truth in that, yes. If you take a look, most people will come, but it also depends on the personality of people. That's a big role. Remember, I had no idea about biochemistry, physiology, or any of this sort of stuff when I had my cardiovascular issue when I was 44. Okay, so what does that tell you? So is it possible to learn? Yes. But it really depends on whether you're on a species-appropriate diet or not. How healthy are you? That can really have an effect. And your mindset. So some deuterium-depleted water, because that's what it is. So if your mindset is one where you put obstacles in front of you, but also you're susceptible to reductionist thinking. So what's reductionist thinking? Let's just cover this in a very, I'm not going to use the scientific terminology, but I'll give you an easily understandable explanation. Now, is reductionism useful? Yes, it is. Why is it useful? Because you can actually learn a metabolic pathway. So you can actually learn that, glycolysis, as an example, has all these steps that are actually happening. So you can go through them and learn all the steps and, what they do and stuff like that, all the way down to pyruvate. That can be useful to understand, how glycolysis works, or how lipolysis works, or beta oxidation, as it's called, or how the Krebs cycle works, But that will just tell you how certain components of the total system work. If you from there extrapolate about the entire system, you'll be completely wrong. That's what the repeat people do and all that. You go, oh, I noticed this does this and this affects this. So, a deficiency in that is the problem. No. It may not have anything to do with that. That may be a downstream effect of some other process. You see what I mean? And that's the problem with reductionism. You fall into traps very easily. And it's not only, see, if I was telling anybody, came to me and said, what sort of education would you do, Harry? I'd say, become an engineer, because engineers learn about systems. They learn how systems work, the ins and outs and all the details and how all the moving parts work together. They're analytical. They understand, because my profession is via an engineering that sort of background, because that's what surveying and mapping and stuff like that, the part of that. So we think differently. We in the way we deal, even if I'm doing a comp of a survey, all around it must, I can work out from the parts how the different Travis lines and all that, where the problems lie. Other data, because there's data analytics in cartography as well. So there is a way of actually looking at the data and investigating the data and analysing the data. So you learn, or if you're in the building industry, which is, you engineer, building, engineer or mechanical engineer or an electrical engineer, you will learn how systems work. It's a different mindset. Where unfortunately the way medicine is taught and the way biochemistry and physiology are taught in a very reductionist way, and people just learn these things to regurgitate them in a parroted way. And when you actually develop a mindset of being what I call a programmed individual, because that's what our education system does, creates programmed individuals that learn specific tasks to be able to do in a factory, because that was the purpose of the early education back in the old days when it was first established. Prior to that, it was only the wealthy people that were able to send their kids to special types of academies, and those academies were, where you had free thinkers, a lot of discussions about all sorts of things. That's how schools were. The school that we get schooled now is designed to dumb you down and teach you to think within set parameters and not outside those. And that's the problem why most people are the way they are, is because they've been programmed to think in a certain way, in a very reductionist way, in a very, these are the steps you do to basically put this piece together with that piece. Why, how it works, what is its mechanical strength and all that, no idea, unless you do engineering. So engineering, you have to learn, whether you like it or not, get out of that mindset, of the reductionist mindset, and think about systems. Because if you get systems wrong, even one part doesn't work with the other stuff, guess what happens? The bridge falls down, the pipeline doesn't work properly, and you get an explosion or whatever else. That's what happens. The building collapses. So it's a different mindset. All the other fields tend to be what I call indoctrination nowadays, in particular fields, which is a horrific, but that's the reality. Technically minded people tend to be some of the brightest people, not because I'm technically minded, I'm not arguing from that position, but we think outside the square. We analyze things, we're analytical, we think differently. It's the reason why Google pays people so much for data analytics and stuff like that, because those sort of people make money for them, because they can tease out the real information that they want to exploit to make this. So they're willing to accept in some areas where it affects this, some of that free thinking, but in other areas they don't want to. So it depends whether it's profitable or not for them. Most areas are not. It's best to have people that do what they're told and follow the guidelines, like most doctors do nowadays and many others. So it's a very different, but if you break out of that mindset, then yeah, you can learn at any age, I believe. I don't believe you can be as creative if you've been brought up with a certain level of brainwashing. That means a general 90% of the population. But if you've been able to break away from that, I think you can be creative in any age. Just look at the old philosophers back. They were in their 80s, some of them, or 90s, and they were still coming up with new ideas and new thoughts and all sorts of discussions. So that heater, I need to probably turn it down. It's drying out my throat. A bit cold in Tassie. We are in the winter after all. Anyway, hi Harry. Lost dragonflies. Bios. Hi Harry. What about only just meat? Could trigger diarrhea. Oh, not really. I know, look, like some collagen supplements that people take can, but remember, your gut lining is made of collagen, so it's useful. But if it can't be incorporated properly, that means some of the mechanics down there are not working properly. So that's what you need to look into. Okay. So when quality is not an issue, acting as a format. Look, I think ultimately if you just stick to regular carnivore diet, most things get resolved over time. I think sometimes we put too many things in, too many supplements, too many this or that. Unless you've got a real issue with your gut, like you've got gut permeability, then yes, what's your vitamin D status? Take some taurine, fix your vitamin D status, and it usually resolves the issue in that regard. Take out the stuff that's causing reactions, that usually resolves. Using a lot of these types of supplements can help some people, but others it can actually make things worse. It's a bit of a hit and miss. So it depends where they're at. So I think ultimately, if you've got certain unresolved issues, you may need to consider consulting with somebody, because it's really hard to say, well, this will trigger that, because it doesn't in all people. Like taurine, in some people can be very sensitive, like a lot of things. There is that bell curve, and so there can be some variability. But one thing, if you stop thinking about what you're going to put in, the inputs, but resolving the underlying problem. The underlying problem is either a problem with your gallbladder, a problem with your stomach, a problem with your pancreas. Some of the organs are not working properly for some reason. Sometimes if the digestive tract isn't operating, I wouldn't even bother with collagen supplements at all. I'd use reparative peptides. So I'd get BPC 157, do that for 2 months, and usually many people, it'll actually repair a lot of the actual your gut damage and stomach damage. Go right through and do a lot of that sort of stuff and fix a lot of that sort of stuff. So, and it will be faster and it'll resolve the issue much faster in that regard. Gallbladder is a bit of a, teething issue where you may have to do things like milk thistle for a period of time and choline as well, which helps export fat, but also helps with the emulsification of the bile, so it actually makes it flow better in that regard. So taurine produces better bile. So if you're eating a more carnivorous food, the amino acids that you get that are synthesized, they will in the liver, they will provide the better bile quality, but then the choline will actually improve emulsification, reduce slightly the cholesterol in the actual bile, and actually then allow it to function better and flow better. And usually that will also cleanse the small intestine of bacterial overgrowth and get resocket at the base of the small intestine, as long as the FXR enzymatic pathway is working properly. Then milk thistle is an issue there to basically try and resolve the functioning of that enzymatic pathway. So it depends. So you try the choline first, and if it's not resolving, then you throw in the milk thistle as well. So a lot of people go for the milk thistle first. I usually say go for the choline, and if the choline isn't fixing it, 2 grams of choline isn't fixing it, then consider adding milk thistle as well. So it depends. So about all these things. I like the organs to be working properly. That's the goal. The goal should be get the organs to work properly. A lot of these extra supplements throwing in isn't resolving the underlying problem that the organs aren't functioning properly. There's an issue. Where is it? Find it. Work out what it is. And once you've done that, if you've got reflux or GERD and all that, you've got low stomach acidity. You don't have to be a rocket science. It's not high, it's actually low. So that can be fixed. But before fixing it, I'd also investigate the gallbladder to make sure that's fine. If that's fine, then I wouldn't worry about fixing the stomach, because otherwise you'll fix the stomach and cause yourself diarrhea because your gallbladder hasn't been resolved. And usually I find people that have got underlying issues with their stomach, prolonged vegan diets or whatever else, or sad diets with high plant-based sort of material, end up having problems not only in their stomach acidity, but also problems with overgrowth and problems with their gallbladder. Tends to be a combination of issues. And the first thing that I try to resolve is the gallbladder, because the gallbladder is the one that's going to both allow the ability to deal with the acidity later on, but also cleanse the small intestine. So it flows through it and cleanses it from bacterial overgrowth and yeast overgrowth. It limits it. There should be very little yeast, like candida, and very little bacterial growth in the stomach or in the gut lining of the small intestine. And that's where bile plays its role. So if it's working properly, your gallbladder is working properly, then that usually resolves all that sort of stuff. And then it's just a matter of fixing, fixing the issue with your stomach. Now, until you get there, people will say, well, how do I deal with that? Okay. So you can use HCl with your meal. to break that sort of down. And then about 2 hours after that, approximately, and all that, then you can use bile, salts, because you don't want to use it immediately, because that would basically prevent you breaking down, having enough acidity, because it takes, depending on, if you have a large meal, it can take anywhere between 3 to 4 hours. If you have a standard meal, I usually say to people, have a standard meal, 2 standard meals, so it takes about, to digest fully, around about 2 odd hours, and then throw in the bile then to lower the acidity as it's going into the small intestine. And that's how you deal with that until you can resolve the gallbladder, and then all the other issues flow from there. So I hope that is understandable how it works. It's a system, and it's got a lot of moving parts, and multiple parts can have issues, or one part can have issues. Until you exactly know, you can't just magically come up with a diagnosis and a protocol. How do I do it? Well, first we need to know what the state of affairs are in a system, what the problems with, is that part clogged or is that part clogged? Got it? So once we understand what's causing the problems in the system, then we can actually take remedial action. Can't be a level. Okay. If I have average intelligence by nature, is it possible to become smarter? Or books will only give me reading, not intelligence. Tasks will give skills, but not intelligence. Intelligence doesn't come from reading books. That's a myth. That's just bullshit. Reading books and reading literature and reading whatever, what that gives you is knowledge, not intelligence, knowledge. But knowledge can be dangerous. We can see how many crackpots believe in reductionist nonsense and all sorts of things, have knowledge, and then they come up with Jabba the Hutt and ignore a whole lot of things. Got it? So we can have experts with a lot of knowledge, but very little analytical intelligence and very poor investigative. To be willing to investigate something, to get out of your comfort zone, because that's really what it is, getting out of your comfort zone. Most people are not prepared to get out of their comfort zone. That is why they are knowledgeable but not intelligent. Intelligent requires getting out of your comfort zone. You may have not heard that before, but that's really what it is. People that are prepared to get out of their comfort zone and investigate things tend to find the reasons, the causal reasons why things don't work, as long as they never deceive themselves. You know, the smarter the person is, the more likely they are to deceive themselves. And you know why? Is because they end up believing their own bullshit. That's the problem. How do I deal with it? Well, you've probably seen me sometimes. What do? Unless I'm 100% sure about something, I never claim anything. I'll say it's a hypothesis, or I'm speculating. But I'm still looking for it, because I have this, I don't know what it is, it's maybe the way I grew up. I have this insatiable need to know the truth. I'm not interested in, what people think. I don't give a shit whether you think I'm intelligent or not. Absolutely don't give a rat's ass. What's the difference? Another human out there that thinks I'm intelligent or not intelligent. Whoopee. I don't care. I don't learn to basically, in order to, I may have as a youngster a bit. That's true, because I wanted bragging rights, but that's the youthful. But when you get to my age, or, especially when you suffer like cardiovascular, you want to learn how it actually works. I don't want to basically repeat what the doctor says and seem smart and die. I want to exactly know how things bloody work, because that's the way I'm going to actually improve my health and actually allow me to live longer. It's not going to be by, there's plenty of people that have got a lot of, like Steve Jobs, all up there in lights. He's not around, is he? So that, when you realize that, it's useless. So what's knowledge? If you don't use knowledge to attain, you're never going to attain truth 100%. It's impossible. We're not gods. But get close to understanding the world, nature, things in a much deeper way. You've got to be prepared to get out of your comfort zone and be prepared to find things that are disagreeable with you. I look at constantly. Like I found something recently. I haven't made the video yet because I don't want other people to jump on it. But there is an issue with a compound when, with this thing, the two together do the opposite of what they do in a healthy person. And that's going to be a bit of a shocker for people that have got cancer. So I'm going to have to do a new protocol for those people that have done this. So, they'll have to do other things before they can do some of the other things. So, yeah, that has to come out soon as well, because there's a lot of people with this issue, explosive cancers and stuff like that. But the thing is, the reason why I realize that is because nothing's holy to me. Nothing is holy. I'll tell you what the compound is. Fuck it. F it. Taurine. When your immune system gets severely damaged from this to a certain level, it no longer works. It's in rodent studies, but it no longer works. And it may actually make things worse. That's a problem. So we need to basically do the other protocol to inhibit our little spiky friends and eliminate them before we can do the other stuff. So we could actually, and then focus on improving the immune system, like with TA1 peptide. But even TA1 peptide won't really work well without taurine, and won't really work well without fixing the other problem. Got it? Some people call it a bioweapon. Maybe they're right. Have to be careful with YouTube. But you know what I mean. So nothing is holy for me. Other people may view things in that regard. Their whole life they'll dedicate to certain things. I'm willing to take things that I believed in under certain circumstance or whatever, or in general, and just tear them down if they're wrong. Or I found circumstances where they don't work properly. I'll call it out myself. I've called myself out on a number of occasions on boron and a few other things, even though I did warn people not to stick to 3 milligrams, but I didn't explain why I was saying that. And then people cause themselves magnesium and potassium deficiencies from doing too high doses. But anyway, I should have explained it in the first place. So that was a short-sightedness from me. I'll correct myself. If I didn't actually give the complete understanding of that compound, how to use it properly. I sort of miss things as well. I'm human, after all. But to become intelligent, you really have to get out of your comfort zone. If you're not prepared to get out of your comfort zone, you're never going to be intelligent. You'll be the run-of-the-mill person. It's really hard to get. That's why most people are not intelligent. They're knowledgeable. They can be knowledgeable, but not intelligent, because they're not willing to get out of their comfort zone and think outside the square. Is what it is. Anyway, how is it possible to get rid of complexes on your own? Complex. What do you mean by complex? I've got a complex. Or do I need to psychologist or some BS like I some psychological therapy can work if you find the right person in that regard. There is a relationship between your psychological state of mind and your diet. Some people that are more sensitive need to keep it much cleaner. There is also circumstances where people, due to detoxification pathways, tend to have more derangements in their brain, their chemistry, not because they have got any mental issue. Once they get on a carnivore diet and they keep it very strict, things normalize. But if they're not, it doesn't. It's because they've got very poor detox and they can have a lot of accumulation, and you may need to do things like higher doses of, not very high, but slightly higher dose of the regular calcium deglutarate in order to basically get that stuff out of the system, detox much better to support the detox pathways. So there's that, because there can be genetics that vary in the detox capacity of people. So they can be much more sensitive to environmental toxins like mold, where others are less, even on an appropriate diet. So there's a lot of things that can be, there's a variability, bell curve again, of people where they sit. Most people that have got the high detoxification pathways, like myself, I don't have all of them, but some of them, a large part, they consider also longevity genes. They're not really. What they are is that you're going to be better being able to deal with environmental and toxins that come into your system. That's the difference. And if you're in the same environment, you're going to live a bit longer than someone else because you're able to clear that stuff out more successfully than some other person. But the difference is only going to be a couple of years. It's not going to be like 20, 30 years, obviously. So anyway, let's move on. What's the reason for some people's sensitivity to change in weather? They feel sick. It's usually circadian clocks. What I said earlier about the sensitivity to environmental factors is very much due to circadian clocks and certain genetics that make some people more susceptible than others. So if you're, let's say you're a bit of a night owl like me, you could be sensitive to certain things. If you're on the other extreme, where you go really early to bed, you can also be sensitive to some other things. The people somewhere in between tend to have less of these sensitivity issues. So I'm also one of those people because I'm a bit of a night owl. So it can really disrupt my sleep. I have to learn to discipline myself and all that, in some regards. So just keep all that in mind. So now you know why I've got all these lights, they're blue blocking lights, and I wear these things, and there's my daytime ones, the yellow ones that knock about 70% of blue light from the screens. So yes. Oh, Deborah's here. G'day, Deborah. Yes, it is a surprise. Impromptu. As I said, I was bored. My dear, I was bored. But I said, why not? So I'm going to stop it at about 10 o'clock, so about 13 minutes. So if I've missed your question and it's really, really a desperate, absolutely desperate, just leave a comment and it will be answered tomorrow. Anyway, make sure the detox pathways are, that's for another day. I cover a lot of those things in a number of my videos. I'm not, that's a long question. Need to keep it to things that I can just answer immediately like that. I'm not going to start putting things up and, so I've already covered most of those issues anyway. And there's more in my videos. Thank you for addressing my question. I will go through your Taurine playlist. I appreciate that. Thank you. I always like thank you. You know, whenever anybody leaves me a thank you, they get a little heart. You know, even when they ask a question, if they leave a thank you, it's, you know, saying, well, thanks, because this is not my day job, guys. I just do this because I want to. I want to share a bit. Or you can blame that other guy on the other side of the pond, Bart K, you know, and his little teddy bear. You know, it's them two that are to blame for the misery that I put you under. So go and blame them, not me. Yes, I was encouraged because initially I didn't even want to start a channel. I was like, oh God, I just don't have the time. I said to Bart. And then eventually he said, oh, look, you got so much knowledge, because I used to go on his live streams occasionally on these old ones that he took off because he was forced, because YouTube made a big issue about it and he had to move them to that Odyssey channel. And I've actually made links to a lot of that sort of stuff, but a lot of that sort of stuff is there. I never made links only for the videos that I actually did with him, collaborations. And probably the only person that I've actually collaborated with mostly in recent times has been Pim. So, because, well, Bart keeps on telling me each time I chat with him, he keeps on telling me, oh, I need to get you on. He's got me on sometimes live streams. But he goes, we need to do a collaboration about that. But then he gets too much involved with his own stuff. Never gets back to me. So at some stage, when he's got a bit of free time, we will do another collaboration on some topic in that regard. So currently, the only persons or people that I'm actually currently doing Jonathan, and is Jonathan still here? No, I think he's gone. Oh, Jonathan's left me. Oh God, I didn't even see that. I'm too caught up. Let's just go down. There was. Yeah. So Carnivore Muscle is Jonathan. I value Harry's support and advice. Keep it up. Thanks, mate. I appreciate it. So Jonathan's got a channel. So if you go to his channel, you can also ask him all sorts of questions and stuff like that. He's into bodybuilding. He recently won some competition, so he did a really good cut, and his body was tip-top for the competition, so it looks pretty good. So if you want a bodybuilder's type body or stuff like that, go and see Jonathan. He knows his stuff. He's won competitions, so he's not some, one of these so-called influencers, bodybuilder influencers that have never won anything. Jonathan's actually won stuff. He knows his shit. Still here listening. Fair enough, mate. Fair enough. I thought you'd gone. God. I can't praise you while you're here. But thanks anyway, Jonathan, for all your support. Because when I was in trouble with the YouTube police, Jonathan was the first person who actually approached me and said, do you want to come on my channel and chat with people? So people, because I couldn't even post, so I couldn't do anything. So nobody knew why there was no content for 3 months. So Jonathan was very nice of him to invite me on so I could actually let people know. We did a bit of collabs here or there. That's Jonathan's channel, so just go there and subscribe. If you haven't, why haven't you? What's wrong with you? So yeah. Thanks. Good on you, Nathan. Yeah, he's done pretty well. So he knows his shit. So if you want to learn anything about the sort of stuff in bodybuilding, go and chat with Jonathan. Oh, yes. Thank you for being here as well. His Most Catholic Majesty. You've put a few questions recently, so good of you. Just like everyone, I encourage people to ask me questions and also challenge me. Remember what I said earlier. I like to be challenged, because even if I don't know about something, I'm going to go and research it and find out and pull it apart and all that. Because there's a lot of bullshit out there. There is a lot of bullshit out there. And if somebody, doesn't mean just because somebody makes mistakes most of the time, there's always, even amongst Fagoons and amongst repeat people and many others, that sometimes get certain things right. But mostly they get it wrong because of that reductionist thinking and their own ideology. But I never, basically just shut the drawbridge or pull up the drawbridge and just say, you've got nothing to offer. Because sometimes they will have insights about their own problems in their community. And when I check, like if I'm looking at a vegan site, I'm not interested in all their propaganda, but I'm interested in some of their videos where they're talking amongst themselves and their problems, because they are pointing to specific issues that is being caused by their diet. That gives me information to investigate and work out exactly the causal reasons, and that allows me to make some of those videos that I've made in the past, the myths and falsehoods of veganism. I do have a whole playlist on the veganerized myths. So if you want to go and learn about the veganerized myths, there's a whole playlist. There will be more, because there's, an endless supply of nonsense coming from that community, believe me. So there'll be more stuff in the future. What is the environment like in Hobart? Lots of factories, recycling, traffic pollution. No, it's, the Greater Hobart area is about 200,000+. It's, even the Hobart Central is about, I think about 50-odd thousand. So our capital isn't like one of the big capitals of the world, or even Australia. It's one of the smallest capitals in Australia. It's a regional centre more than a. It's a capital, but more like the size of a regional centre in other countries. So it's a much smaller community. I can walk from my place to work in about 20-odd minutes. And if I'm walking back in the evening, slowly, just taking it easy, it takes me about half an hour to get home. So it's very different in that regard. We don't have a lot of factories or anything like that. So there's not a lot of pollution or traffic or stuff like that. The only time there's traffic is down in the main street where I work. And the reason for that is because you've got people coming from the southern areas coming in to Hobart to get to the other side of the river. And so that central part can get specific hours early in the morning and in the afternoon between about 4 to 6 o'clock. That's when it's really packed. The traffic is really, but after 6 o'clock, the traffic drops off dramatically. So less of an issue in that regard. Cami, how are you? Good to see you there. Groot. Long-term deep ketosis bad? Yeah, I would say so. Even the Maasai, if you check out the videos that I did with Mary Ruddock covering the Maasai and many other things, there's a playlist for her as well. And some of the stuff that I did with her also had to do with the blue zone. So there's a bit of stuff there. You can actually see that the Maasai, she's a nutritionist working out of Greece. Her partner's Greek. So Mary pretty much does a lot of research with a lot of tribal groups around the world. And what she's actually found is they tend to be in this sort of low-grade ketosis. It's because, when you're eating sufficient meat in one meal, because usually they have like 1, maybe 2 meals a day, that's all they do, and they have a lot they will gorge on. So they will raise their insulin slightly, which will knock them out of ketosis, and then that drops off. And so they're already in this sort of low-grade ketosis. And even their blood sugars are sort of in this low grade, in there around the mid 4.5 millimoles or slightly lower. So it's, that's a sort of where things are. And she did blood tests on all of them. And they thought it was quite funny, because she was going around pricking their fingers and doing blood tests on all these different Maasai and that sort of stuff. So, yeah, interesting. She did find one of the actual chiefs in the Hadza. His blood sugars were really high, pre-diabetic. And she actually sat down and asked him, what does he do? And he said, "Oh, I'm a guide for the tourists." And then she asked him, "Do you eat a lot?" And she found that he actually gets a lot of candy from the tourists, the European American tourists that go there. That's the problem. So what can one say? Oh, Jared's here. G'day, mate. Good to see you, mate. God, you just wake up in Canada. Oh, in the gulag of Canada. God, it's becoming nasty over there. You better be careful what you say. Your mate Trudeau may lock you up and throw away the key. Does he require to be saluted as well? I won't do it because YouTube algorithms and AIs are looking. God, crazy little fascists over there. I did not wake up. As a matter of fact, may I just add, I love communism. Oh, Jared, you're such a compliant individual. I will send you a gold star, a red star for your forehead as a good supporter of Comrade Trudeau. Bravo, mate. Bravo. Yeah, crazy times. We're living in crazy, crazy times. Oops. Went the wrong way. Down through here, Johnny. Look, ginger can be useful, but also it is a chelator of minerals. So, but probably the amount in ginger tea isn't going to be a big problem even for that. But some people do see a bit of assistance with digestion. It depends. As I said, plants can have medicinal properties. They are more medicine than food, but shouldn't be used on a regular basis, but should be used for like what you're asking. If it works for you, fine. If it doesn't, throw it away. You don't need it. It's sunny. Okay. Bournemouth. Okay. Sunny. I'm glad you're enjoying the sun. We're in Hobart, mate. It's fucking, well, it's not really, actually, it hasn't been that cold, to be honest. It hasn't been that too bad. So, anyway, I'm going to quickly go to the end. Yes, that's it. We are at 10 o'clock. And I got to go in, remove the damn laundry. That I've had it on the spinner. So basically, it's one of those dry spins. So it should have reduced by now, and then I can hang my laundry, and then I can head on to bed after that. What's Jared saying? What a lovely surprise to catch a Harry stream during waking hours for me. Yeah, true. Yeah, it's been a while, mate. Yeah, look, I don't know how things are going. Drop me a line, let me know how things are going within your own private life. If you want to chat, let me know. I know things are a bit crazy where you are now. Even in Australia, they're trying to push down some of this crazy legislation as well. So there is pushback, luckily, and on the digital currency, on some of the restrictions and stuff like that. People starting to wake up. So it's getting a bit nasty everywhere, unfortunately. Some places are a bit further ahead in the madness than other places in that regard. Anyway, you're welcome, mate. Thanks for being here. Oops. Why not? It's a lovely island. Well, there are nicer places in the world. I think you can go to any place in the world and you can find nice things, So I shouldn't just say that there are places in Southeast Asia that I've visited that are just absolutely magic as well. It's magic places all over the world. So it's just, hopefully we're not going to be too restricted to 2 flights every decade if these crazies get into fully control of our societies. God. And we're all pinned in our 15-minute gulags. Yes. So remember the slogan, say no to 15-minute gulags. Remember, just make a t-shirt. No to 15-minute gulags. Let's promote that slogan around the world. So we make it a buzz thing, because people will start clicking. I don't want to live in a 15-minute gulag. They're not smart cities. They're gulags. That's what they are. Smart gulags. So the globalists can actually control us really well. So that is what we need to get out there to people so they know. Thanks, mate. Structured water's nonsense. It'll be explained at some future video, but it's nonsense. Okay. Suppose my favorite statistics right now. According to statistics, Canada, yes, the official line, net migration is outpacing new births by 40-1. Diversity is our strength. Exactly. And your illustrious leader is right, Jared. Don't forget that. Praise the illustrious leader Trudeau. No, I haven't actually. The weather hasn't been. Look, in summer, I do a bit of hiking, but in winter, we are in winter at the moment. The first month of the winter, I tend to leave it for early summer, early autumn, sometimes even mid-autumn, because it's not too bad. Late spring, and then summer again, because early spring can be bloody horrendous in Tasmania, because we're on an island, so we've got all these constantly changing sort of wind patterns in spring. It's just you can have really crazy winds and can be quite risky when you go outdoors, especially in places like hiking in those sort of terrains. So you got to be, you got to be very, very careful. Why the hell is it doing this now? Unfreeze, you crazy bloody thing. G'day, Paul. How are you, mate? What, you in bed with your animals? He knows the joke. He knows the joke, so don't get offended. Who has the time for 15-minute gulag? I'm pushing a 5-minute gulag. I'm pushing for a 5-minute gulag. That means you don't even get out of the home. Everything gets home delivered. Is that it? God. Oh, God. You guys are such cynics. That's all I can bloody say, Isadora. How are you? You're basically such cynics. How dare you? I should do a bit Greta impersonation. Yeah, a bit poor. It gets a thumbs down. Let me do it again. How dare you? Oh, there you go. I'm not even going to comment on that because they'll get me into trouble with YouTube. Yes, but unfortunately now to be a patriot and love your country is a bad thing. And if others want to invade your country, it's a good thing, as long as the globalists support it. Yeah, it's problematic. I mean, I've got no issue with humans are humans. We all came out of Africa. I don't have a problem with, in that regard. But when societies can't protect their borders and are deliberately destroyed, it's not a good thing. But they want to destroy the West for one and only reason. It's not because they want to weaken their rule over the West. People need to understand. They just want cheap labour to come in. And labour that's actually compliant, that will do what it's told. Because Westerners tend to be a bit more rebellious and not willing to do what they're told. So, look, they've already seen, if you look at Western expats that live in certain Asian countries, they behave more like the Asians. That means they don't become too adversarial towards the government, more compliant. And so if you can reduce the amount of people with a culture that tends to be less accepting of authority, in that sort of society, then fear can work and people comply, even people that traditionally wouldn't have. And that's what it's all about, So they're changing the demographics so rapidly so they can actually then force their own agendas on those populations. Because the biggest fear is that these European populations and North American populations will rebel and say enough is enough of this bullshit. And at that point, because they don't care, see, people that have grown up with a Western tradition, that we're not, our only motivation isn't pretty much just the benefits. It's also the freedom. We cherish the freedom more, a lot of us, more than many other things. And if we lose that, then, what sort of life is that? But populations that have never had real freedom, for them, it's the benefits. If you can go from one authoritarian system to another and have more benefits, why not? So I don't, view these people in a negative way. I understand where their motivation is coming from. We're allowing them in. We're open up the borders. So you've opened up your house. You've basically torn down the front door and said anyone can come in. So it's that sort of stuff. I mean, my parents came to Australia as immigrants, but they came here as lawful immigrants, which integrated into the society. They didn't try to change the society. They came here and had similar values because they came from a European country. They had similar values. They could easily integrate. That was the whole purpose of Australia. That, you know, the political parties said to the Australian population, we live in a region where we're a very small population. We either populate or perish was the sort of slogan back then in the 50s. And they said we need to encourage immigration from Europe. And America did the same thing. North America did the same thing. Bring immigrants from Europe who have similar values to us, similar culture to us, similar religion to us, all these things, so they can integrate much easier into the society. And that was the whole purpose. So even though Australasia and North America were multicultural so-called societies, in reality, they came from very similar sort of belief systems. They were, you know, predominantly Christian, predominantly had Western values, and they could integrate in that society quite well, seamlessly in that regard. And most of the others were pretty much indigenous populations, like the Greeks, the Italians, the French, or whatever, the Germans, you know, that had been in their land for thousands of years, the Swedes or whatever, people like that. And so that was the way they were. And there's nothing wrong. I mean, people have this have been sold this bullshit that immigration, or let me put it this way, refugee means citizenship. It doesn't. Anybody that's read the Refugee Convention, the whole purpose of the Refugee Convention is to give you asylum so you don't get killed by your government. And when things improve, because you're on a refugee visa until things improve so you can go back to your country. It's not an automatic sort of citizenship. Now, in some countries, even back then would allow, if somebody like a foreign national who was a refugee got married to a local person, then they could apply after a number of years. They'd shown that they were loyal to that country after a number of years, like 15, 20 years, and had some children and stuff like that. So they had fully integrated into that society. They allowed them then to get citizenship. But it wasn't just handed out like candy to anyone. No society allows it. I don't see China allowing any foreigners in. I don't see Korea. I don't see Japan. I don't see any other nation, Russia or any country, allowing people to just come in across their borders. This isn't normal, people. This is abnormal and created by these crazy globalists like Soros and all these people that control the political class. They finance them. And unless we get rid of them, the West as we knew it will cease to exist in the next couple of decades. Things are becoming very dangerous and frightening in that regard. And I don't think the rest of us want to live. And I mean, even the Arabs think we're crazy. Some of the Arab leaders say, you guys took all the crazies that we had problems with, because they used to imprison these people, and they imprisoned them because they were radical crazies. That's why they imprisoned them. Okay, even under actual Sharia law, they've got no right to declare jihad. Who the hell do they think they are? They're not even related to the Prophet. The only person who's got the authority to declare jihad is only the king of Jordan and the king of Morocco. They are direct descendants under Sunni Islam, direct descendants of the Prophet. They only have the authority. These people have no authority. They are heretics, and it should have been liquidated, and we should have said nothing about it. We should have allowed these Arab countries to get rid of them. We wouldn't have had any of these problems today. This bullshit about protecting these radicals that have filled the West and now are creating absolute mayhem. They don't care about us. They basically want to impose their own will on us, and they're only small numbers. Can you imagine if they become 20% or 30% of the population, what will happen? Remember, revolutions like in Russia and all that, the Nazis. It's only 30%. You don't need a majority to win. If you're organized and armed, you can take over, even with smaller numbers. People need to realize that. Unless we want to live in some dystopic future, we need to kick these people out, and we need to wake up the rest, because the rest are basically asleep, absolutely asleep and brainwashed. That's how bad it is, out there. I've got no problems, because many of my subscribers come from a number of countries around the world. I've got no problems with anyone. But I do have a problem with an immigration system that's out of control in the West, deliberately by these globalists who have got a different agenda. They don't give a shit about the local population. They don't give a shit about freedom. They don't give a shit about any of this sort of stuff. This is why we're seeing, like what's happening in America, complete travesties of justice. They're just appointing their own crazies, and they're doing whatever they like, ignoring the Constitution. You have to understand, people, the Constitution is as good as the people that support it and defend it. If a population ceases to want to defend its Constitution, I mean, the Chinese Constitution says about freedom and the rights of Chinese citizens, but does it actually enforce it? If those who rule you no longer enforce it, well, and those who allow other people in to be able to get their vote so they can become like a one-party system, a woke one-party system, change the demographics, win the elections forever, keep on giving them benefits. And they'll, these people don't care how they hold on to power. They've allied themselves, and we're in most Western countries where, even though the numbers of outsiders isn't big, that's not the issue. The issue is at the political class. We need to get rid of these people, because if they stay there for too long, they will corrode the system to such a level where you won't be able to save it without a massive civil war and a lot of people dying. If we want to avoid civil war in our societies and avoid destruction on a massive scale, and potentially even a third world war with these crazies, we need to get rid of them. It's come to the stage where we need to start getting out there and getting involved in our society. Sorry, but it may be inconvenient for you. It may be out of your comfort zone, but you need to get out of your comfort zone, grow some balls, and get out there and start going to the school councils, going to all these things and taking these people on and getting rid of them as well, voting them out. Because it starts from the local level all the way up. If you can eliminate a lot of these people, you break their network. They've got a network. We need to break their network by getting into all these local levels, local councils and whatever, school councils and everything, and slowly get rid of these people, outvote them, challenge them. So they know that they are not there, they can do whatever they like. Because as long as they are there, they'll do whatever they like. And they'll just erode everything to shit. So for them, they don't care. They think that our Western society are evil. They need to be destroyed. That's their mindset. If we don't stop them, there's not going to be a West to save, in a sense. We'll have nowhere to go. The funny thing is, I say to some people, some of my friends, I say, the safest place is going to be in some countries in Asia and certain other places which are more stable and more logical. That's how funny it is, that the West is going to become even worse than the Middle East. It'll become a hellhole in that regard. And some parts of America are already a hellhole and getting worse. And that's the problem with the West, that we've got a whole lot of crony politicians that don't care about us anymore. They just don't care about us. They've stopped caring. And if we don't remove them, we're going to be finished. completely finished in that regard. And I'm not saying go to the crazies. Don't go to the far right, because you're not going to find any salvation there. All they want is, I don't want a savior, another authoritarian savior. We don't want the crazies on the left, their authoritarianism, or the crazies on the right, their authoritarianism. Oh, we can save you. No. We want the moderates in the middle who understand these problems and have solutions. That's the people we want. And that's the people we need to support. And we also need to get off our asses and go and start getting in the local levels and start pushing back against all this nonsense that's out there, because it's all part of all this sort of agenda in that regard. But we need to be tactful. We need to expose it. Because you know what? When truth comes out, or you expose things to the light of scrutiny, these people go and hide because they don't really have strong arguments. I argue with some of these people, and the moment you hit them on a point where they've got no argument, they run. They'll start becoming aggressive towards you. You notice, you've got them on the back foot. They become aggressive because they don't want a logical argument. They don't want a conversation. They just want to sloganeer, because that's all they know. They're brainwashed individuals. So you don't need to be nasty towards them. I always say, don't be nasty, because they may go away and think about it and say, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe. Some of them, not all of them, but some of them can sometimes have that sort of epiphany at some point. So we need to save them as well from themselves, because in order to avoid worse calamities down the road where we end up, in some sort of civil strife between the two big groups in society. That's what we want to avoid. Because that's what they want. They want to rule, and they want to rule by, grabbing most of the power, grabbing most of the support within society now with the brainwashed people, and then enforcing their will. That's what they want. So actually going for violence will just give them the justification to clamp down even harder. That's the last thing we want to do. We want to expose them. Use this, not this, to basically undermine their arguments, their credibility and everything, and start eroding their whole support base at every level. That's what we have to do. We have to take back our societies, and we have to get off our asses. And we have to avoid the extremism that's out there. It looks like, the other, the part that I'm talking about, the right part of it looks attractive, but whenever it gets into power, you know how nasty it is. Just as nasty as the authoritarian left. It's the other side of the coin. Okay? For the rulers, they don't care which side of the coin, because they finance both sides. Remember? Even, they financed Nazi Germany, and they financed other countries that opposed them. And they profiteer from both sides. That's how they operate. So don't make the mistake of supporting either extremes. What you need to find is moderate, reasonable people in the middle that have realized that these people are scum bags, and expose them and support the right sort of people to clear out all this, filth out of our society. And there are people there, both on the centre left and centre right in many countries, that have woken up, that realise this sort of bullshit. JFK Jr., I don't agree with some of his environmental nonsense, but he's woken up on a lot of things. Trump, even though he was less woken up before, he's still arrogant, but he's woken up to a lot of things because they've gone after him, and he's realised how nasty these people are. So he's more awake than he used to be in that regard. That's why he's more dangerous, and they realise that's why they're going after him so hard. They're going after both of those characters. But that's the reason why. So, and there are, in Europe and other parts of the world, there are certain people in the centre that are more reasonable, that have got good ideas, and understand the corruption that exists in society. We need to support these people. We need to get the, sometimes I know that some people say, well, some of these politicians have got the right ideas, but they're boring. Well, promote them, because the more they get exposed, people get exposed, they will listen to their reasonable ideas and they'll go, well, there is an alternative to these nutters, So we need to promote reasonable people and people that understand the corruption, the corrosiveness that exists within the power structures. Those people that understand and oppose to that, both on the centre left and centre right, that are more centrist, and reasonable, but they understand this, those are the people we need to support, because those people are going to flush out the system, because they know what they're fighting. They'll flush it out, but they'll flush it out in the legal way without, creating the death and carnage that we don't want. We definitely don't want that. So that's a sort of thing, for me, in America, if I was an American citizen, and this is not, an endorsement or anything, there's not much possibility for JFK Jr. to get in. And at the same time, I'm not very comfortable with some of his environmental nonsense, to be honest. So I would rather have Trump get in, do the dirty work that needs to be done at that level, and then JFK following in after him to basically get rid of part of the deep state within the State Department and elements within the intelligence that are he'll take them out if he survives. That is, so that's a sort of combo that may work in clearing out a lot of this crony political system that exists there. I don't see anyone else that could actually even do small things to clear out that system. It's so corroded to the bone. And as I said, in most countries, there's very, Nigel Farage, for instance, in the UK, he's another person who's, even though they call him far right, is bullshit. Nigel Farage is basically centre-right. That's what he is. Traditionally, he came out of the Tories. He's a centre-right politician, but he's a one that woke up. You go back 10, 15 years ago, somebody like Nigel Farage, what he's saying would have been considered reasonable and normal. It's just now that anything that's actually to the right of the far left is all racist and all the other connotations. So we can ignore what the media and all these people are saying, but that's a reasonable person that wants to clear up, understands the corrosiveness, understands what's happening in the system and how the society has been just upended. So in different countries, I support, politicians who are centre-left or centre-right, depending on what they want to do. Some politicians in some countries are going to be on the centre-left. Like in Greece, I support two sort of groupings that are both, one is on the centre-right and one is on the centre-left. So, and that's the, one's an old, he was in the foreign affairs for many years, and he's in that movement as well. I haven't even checked the results, what has actually happened in Greece, but the European results, I will take a look at them. I think I saw something that much of the right has actually gone up. Doesn't surprise me. Not by a big amount. That surprised me even more. So, because I think people, even in Italy, were expecting a bit more from Meloni. She sort of fell in line, and many others have fallen in line, and that's probably the reason why she hasn't done any better. But I still have some misgivings about Meloni and some of her geopolitics and some of her attitudes within the region, so which are not really good. So she's I thought she was going to be a more Eurosceptic, a more NATO skeptic in some regards. She's become the complete opposite in some regards. So I think some Italians have lost faith in her as well in that regard. In Italy, I just put up my hands. I can't pick anyone. There's no one there at the moment that is of any real value. I don't know what the Italians are going to do. They may have to invent or create new politicians for themselves. It's just simple as that. The reality is that our societies are becoming very unstable, and if we don't pull them back from the brink, they will collapse. People don't realise, didn't take much for the French Revolution to happen, or the War of Independence in America, or civil wars in Europe in the past, that these people are playing with fire and destabilizing the societies to such a level is frightening, because it's happening so fast. So it's not a slow thing. This is a fast moving pace. This instability that's happening throughout the whole European system and North America and even Australasia. I think their sort of attitude is, if we don't change things now and control them, these globalists, how they're thinking, we may not get a chance again. And that's why they're going for broke. And that's why they're going crazy on the wars, and they're going broke on the authoritarianism. They're trying to push everything at the same time. It's like an avalanche. We have to push back. This is the point where if we don't push back, we're going to lose. So we're at an inflection point in history between now and 2030. So it's not many years, 6 years. We need to friggin' get our act together, all of us as a society, if we're going to hold our societies together. Otherwise it's going to. There will be people, in some of those people that have come in from other parts of the world, that will agree with us, and they may eventually ally themselves with us, and that can be helpful. So we shouldn't discount anyone or anything at this stage whatsoever. We're living in, as I say, interesting times, and today's friends can be tomorrow's enemies. It's crazy. It's very hard to sort of exactly know how things are going to work out. And that's the sort of issues and all that. Yeah, I'll get into it, Lukey. Easy water and all that. It's water only. Look, all matter in the universe has probably got 4 phases. The other one is plasma, and the other ones are, solid, fluid. What actually makes the difference in terms of water viscosity is the solutes. Got it? The minerals, the ions that are in there. It's the solutes. It's the combination of all that. And some of the regulatory effects of that are taurine based. So if you're on a species appropriate diet, it's going to have some of that sort of that other viscosity. Sugar can disrupt that viscosity. So this whole thing, there is no easy water. There is no structured water. What there is, outside a body, there is no structured water. There is no 4th phase. It only exists inside the body, something that looks slightly different in the way it behaves, water. It's no different than, when you look at transition between the crystalline forms, between something that's solid, ice, and actually go and it's starting to thaw, how they break down and certain change. Beautiful, you can make beautiful art, but the reality is that's a transitional thing. And with certain minerals, combination, that can actually have different effects and different relationships and all that. From glacial water that's become solid and has certain minerals, because it can change slightly the arrangements of molecules inside it. But that does not negate or create new physics. The problem is And that's why it has to be explained from a physicist point of view, not from people that are in the sciences of related to physiology and stuff like that, is because they are seeing certain effects which they can't explain because they don't understand physics, and they're coming up with nonsense is what is actually happening. That's what they're coming up with, nonsense sort of ideas and hypotheses and theories. So that's the reality. And so if you want a fourth phase of water, you have to demonstrate it outside a body, and you can't. It only happens inside the body, where the ions can be arranged in a certain way. The solutes inside the fluid can be arranged in a certain way, where there is, from the own tissue of the body and of the mitochondria and all that, can create certain, the magnetic fields that can be generated can have an effect on the viscosity of that water, the way it actually, and the ions that are in there. So that's really what is happening. It has nothing to do with some fourth phase of water. Absolute nonsense. It's crackpot ideas. And that's why I say to him, open up your lab and actually show us. He can't. It's no different than the old cold fusion stuff, some chemical process that actually produced a bit of extra heat. Whoopee, but it wasn't fusion. So there is specific experiments to be able to, and many other people. There's a good Australian academic that's actually covered some of this, demystified some of this bullshit easy water stuff. But that's for a future video that I'll cover it properly and explain why it is nonsense and all that. That doesn't mean that certain arrangements of the way, they're in the bloodstream, the glycocalyx that have got this, the pericellular matrix can have a negative charge and affect the way water molecules move within it. It's fine, because it's got a lot of solutes in there, a lot of that actually can have that effect in the magnetic fields, the way they can be arranged and affected and affect the flow. But that doesn't create a new phase of water. That's just basically the interaction of all these different molecules that are dragging water and to do things. It's no different than taurine, which is an osmolyte, and there are many other osmolytes that can manipulate water and ions inside a body. But you take all that stuff and put taurine and water in a cup like this and tell it to do something, it won't do anything. So it's within the structure of a living organism that has certain certain magnetic fields that we generate internally within our own cells and our structures. That is really affecting not only water molecules, but ions and many other things in our body in a certain way that if you threw them in to a cup of water, they wouldn't react the same way. Okay? So it's nonsense. It's beyond nonsense. It's crackpot ideas. But, that's why I'm not fashionable around a lot of circles, because I call the bullshit out. I'm not interested. I want to learn how really things work properly and understand them. I don't jump on fashionable things. I'm not interested. I find them boring. It's just another guru and come and listen to my yogi bullshit ideas. That's all they are. And so I usually discount all that sort of stuff. You want to convince me? You prove that it can actually happen in this on its own, and then I'll believe you. Maybe in another universe, not in this one. Anyway, guys, well, that's pretty much it. I've had my rants. I've answered some of your questions. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. I probably went overboard a bit. You know me. I sometimes get a bit wound up with all the bloody nonsense that's out there. Yeah, who knows? I don't think all places are going to collapse. No. There may be a few places here or there. And what we mean by collapse, I don't think we're going to end up getting the sort of a Mao era or stuff like that, that sort of level of collapse. Not going to happen. But I'm more fearful of a controlled dystopia where things are really quite dark. That's what I'm worried more than anything else. Anyway, good night, Jared. See you all, and look forward to a few more extra videos. I will be back on to the normal live streaming next Sunday, Australian Eastern Standard Time. So for the North American crowd, that will be obviously in their Saturday evening, where for everyone else from Iceland, British Isles, all the way through to Northeast Asia, from all that sort of part of the world, it will be on the Sunday for those people, especially the Eurasia one. So for most of those people, for the other one, it's for Australasia, Central Asia, and Northeast Asia. It's usually on the same day. For Europe, they're usually asleep, and North America, it's their evenings and my morning. It's the way it usually goes. So just as a reminder, the time slots haven't changed. It's still 10:30 in the morning, Australian Eastern Standard Time for the 10:31, and then this is the evening one, is 6 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time again. And in summer, we do get affected by daylight savings. So that affects, we go 1 hour ahead. Parts of Europe go 1 hour behind back. And so usually you get a 2 hour change shift. For those countries that don't have daylight savings, it's only 1 hour shift that only happens. So just keep that in mind, how it actually works. If you look at the description of my live streams, I always put the sort of the dates, because I've actually got a list, little just file. So I just copy and paste the winter time slots there. That's why I keep it the same, because I don't want to have to go through and actually change all the hours and times and all that. So just to basically remind people, especially the new people that are new subscribers, because there's been quite a few recently, which is nice. Thank you for subscribing and supporting this channel. I hope you find the stuff interesting, and hopefully all of us can actually find a way out of this nonsense and find reasonable people to fix our systems, which are falling apart, unfortunately. Anyway, take care, and see you all next week. See yous.